Welcome to It's All Mental, a podcast from Every Turn Mental Health. We're here to talk about every high and low, no limits, just good conversation.
Hi and welcome to It's All Mental. Today we're going to be talking about some key myths or misconceptions regarding talking therapy and accessing talking therapy services. I'm Emma, one of our service leads in Every Turn Services Talking Therapies.
And I'm Jayne. I'm one of the clinical leads for Every Turn Talking Therapies in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. CBT therapist, EMDR practitioner also.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm also one of the clinical leads in Nottinghamshire, Every Turn Talking Therapies. I'm a mental health nurse by background, also trained in CBT and EMDR.
Great, thank you. A couple of different points to talk about today. I'm sure we won't cover all of them, but if we could kick off by having a think about how we describe, like, what's the point in referring to talking therapies if there are long waiting lists?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think it's completely understandable that at times waiting lists do feel disheartening, and sometimes you might question, should I access that support? Should I go into that service or that process? I guess the answer is yes. I think, reaching out, getting on that waiting list is the first step more than anything, because if you question that or delay that, it can prolong that sort of process for you. And ultimately you may be offered something a bit sooner than you would expect. So I think, it's understandable. But it's important to reach out.
Usually it's about within 2 or 3 weeks, isn't it? The maximum from actually referring to getting that appointment, or even sooner. And it can depend, can't it? Depending on, like you say, which treatment or which option you might go for, because there's lots of different options that are available within the services.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. And like you say, sort of 2 to 3 weeks you could be in, and it's that process of us sort of assessing and seeing, actually, can we meet your needs, and it's from that point then that we make that decision of what's suitable or what might be, if it's within our service. And like Sharon's just rightly said, it can surprise people that actually, depending on what you're having, you can be seen a lot sooner than what you would anticipate.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, I guess a couple of the types of therapies that we offer, and it might be different area to area, but certainly across our services, we've got webinars, we've got kind of computerized based CBT, both of which are really kind of great for people to access. And often we can do them in evenings, they can be done in your own time, and they carry shorter waiting times for most services. So if you're keeping an open mind to accessing those, and if that's something that would be able to meet your needs, that could be, within a couple of weeks of your assessment, you could be in and attending one of those sessions. So, they're not for everybody, we recognise that, but for a really good proportion of our clients that come in to refer to us, they access those and find them really, really beneficial, even if it's something that they access some further support after that. You've got that initial support in place, and some bits you can be doing while you're waiting for any further support, or maybe have a bit of a gap and come back to us in future if that's okay for now. Or
Exactly. And
yeah, go on.
I mean, in terms of flexibility as well, I know you mentioned evening appointments, and I think it's important to mention, if you can be flexible in when you are able to have an appointment, whether that be, earlier in the morning, during the day, or evening, if there's more options there, you will be seen quicker. And I think a lot of people worry, don't they, about sort of employers and asking for time out of work to attend these sessions. But what we usually find is that employers are usually really flexible and accommodating.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we've got employment advisors in most of our service, haven't we? So actually you might be able to access some support with them to support you to have conversations with your workplace if that feels a little bit kind of strange or unfamiliar, or if you're a bit worried about those conversations. They might be able to support you to have those conversations. And as you said, Sharon, that's a really great point. If you can be more flexible, when we can see you, it helps us to help you quicker. And that everyone wants to do that. We want to support people as quickly as possible. So yeah, really good point there.
No, definitely. And I think there's some fears that I've heard people say, sort of, I'm going to be waiting up to a year to be seen for therapy as well, which is a long time, isn't it? And I think, you know, again, there's some really valid points here that the waiting times can differ across talking therapy services, and that can be for a number of reasons. But I do feel like what Sharon said and what you've said, Emma, that I think it's really important just to, you know, it can depend on individual circumstances. So like you say, if you're available at kind of different days, different times, that can really help that accessibility. But also, Emma, you mentioned about the computerised CBT. Sometimes you can access that whilst you're waiting for treatment as well. But again, it's not often that people are likely to be waiting up to a year for treatment. But again, it just can differ. And there can be reasons, like we've said, that may impact on that waiting time.
Absolutely. I guess, is there anything key that either of you have noticed, you know, in your own clinical work, or when we look at referrals, why waiting lists are so long, whether that's in particular areas or as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really positive thing that a lot more people are reaching out for support with their mental health. You know, there used to be a lot of stigma with mental health problems, and I'm glad to see that that's reduced and that people are reaching out for that support. What that can mean is that sometimes it takes a while for the system to catch up with the demand, really. So waiting lists can be a little bit longer than we'd ideally like, and we are trying to work on getting more therapists so that we can offer that support quicker.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And I suppose we've already touched on like getting support, or at least contacting the service maybe early, not waiting, and that being really vital.
Yeah.
And any kind of key pointers or bits you'd share around that, why accessing support early might be helpful, or how do you get support maybe quickly?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point about reaching out sooner and not waiting for things to worsen for you. And again, you know, there's nothing wrong with reaching out when you're thinking, oh, I'm just not so sure, would it be the right time to do this? But you know, please do. I think it's really important to, and that's the purpose of kind of why we assess things, to understand what is happening for you. So definitely reach out sooner rather than later. Like Emma's just said as well, we just kind of, you know, you can get on those waiting lists if that's the outcome for you sooner as well. We don't want things to worsen for you whilst you're on a waiting list as well, which is so important. So I definitely think reach out, you know, sooner rather than later. Don't hesitate with that, because that's so important. And the same with a lot of things, isn't it? You know, the sooner we get that support or that intervention, or however we want to describe it, the better, really.
Yeah, and sometimes people worry, don't they, that actually there might be people worse than them who need the support, but actually everybody's equally entitled to access this support. So if you're feeling like, you know, talking to someone and having some therapy could be helpful, please reach out and have that assessment, and then we can help decide, you know, what would be the best form of support for you.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people may feel that they need to be worse. I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean needs to be worse in order, like you say, to access us. And that isn't the case, you know. If you did feel that way, go and see your GP. We don't want people to feel worse. But, you know, in terms of kind of what we provide, you know, we're primary care, so it's mild to moderate difficulties. So just bear that in mind when people are reaching out to us, and, you know, what you can access.
And I think if people had a physical health problem, you know, you wouldn't wait to go and see a GP or go and get that support. And it's just the same with mental health as well. You know, if you are noticing that you're worrying more or feeling, you know, low in mood, or, you know, things are different, lack of motivation, it's better to reach out and get that support sooner, and we can get things in place and moving quicker.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And I guess, I suppose another, I don't know whether it is a myth or whether it's just like a misunderstanding of how certain services work, is around having to, like that barrier, having to go to your doctor to get to talking therapies. And since the inception of talking therapies, you know, that's been commissioned by the NHS since like 2008, not 18, gosh, even longer ago, is that, you know, it's been a self-referral service, which is removing that barrier of having to kind of have an appointment to have another appointment. So the idea is that you can get to us really quickly. Most services have a wide variety of ways you can refer yourself as well, because I guess we are mental health services, aren't we? And we understand that picking a phone up might be one of the things that's difficult for that individual if they've got high levels of anxiety, for example. So I suppose just to bust that myth, most services you could ring them, you've got like a referral form on their website. Lots of services have got like referral bots now, which help support and coach you through the referral, and that can be a really nice way to engage and to have that first conversation, maybe for some people, about how they're feeling. We have also got the telephone option, but equally, if going to your doctor feels the most comfortable step for you and you want to have that discussion with them too, that healthcare professional would be happy to make a referral on your behalf as well, I guess, or any other services that you might already be involved in, I guess. And we find that a lot, don't we, with the service, that we can have other professionals referring into us.
Exactly. And if you are open to another professional, sometimes it is good that the referral comes from them, just so that we can have up-to-date information as well about any sort of work that they may have done with you. So yeah, I think it's good having that mixture of ranges to refer in, depending on need.
Definitely. And I know you mentioned, obviously, accessing us online as well, which I think is really important, because it's a very, easy way to access us. But there's also quite a lot of information on our website about what we do and about the different treatments that we do offer. And I think it's so important to be really open-minded about those things as well. But, read through that information. It's there for people to look at and understand what we do. And some of those things, like we said, you can learn more about, and then those are the things you may be able to access sooner, at least try and see how those things work for you. So there's so much information on there that can kind of support with that process as well.
And I think if you are thinking about referring as well, it is important to think about, am I in the right place to then access the support that will be offered, whether that be, weekly sessions or fortnightly sessions, usually some element of out of session work as well included in that. Therapy can be really difficult, can't it, and really hard work, and we want people to come and get the best out of the sessions. So practically, things like, can I take that time? How am I going to manage, anything that comes up in terms of like work and childcare, so that you've got all that ready, because we want to support you to access that support. We can be flexible, can't we, in terms of our times and things like that, but just thinking about making the changes that come along with therapy, and the therapist that you work with would definitely support people with that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just makes me think sometimes of a common misconception that it's like therapy is not as much a two-way process. It's sort of the therapist doing the therapy for that person, which again, there's different therapeutic interventions, and I completely, respect and appreciate that. I guess within our service, it's a lot of what we offer is CBT based, so cognitive behavioural therapy based, where we're looking at making changes, to the here and now. And it's a very collaborative sort of two-way process. And that's exactly what you said, Sharon, isn't it? It's considering anything that might be agreed for you to try and do out of sessions, and it can be hard work, but it's definitely worthwhile. It's just like I say, it's like a two-way street, isn't it? It's working together. It's really important.
Yeah, but that'll all be explained, won't it, after assessment,
Absolutely.
if you agree that one of those sort of therapies would be best, so that you can have a think about that as well.
Yeah. I think that, it ties back into a couple of things we said, isn't it? It's about coming in, getting yourself referred as soon as possible if you think you'd benefit from support and you've got realistically time, or, that feel ready to do that, but then being open, I guess, to what that assessor's saying to you, because I suppose sometimes people come in with quite like a fixed idea, which we understand sometimes, because whether they've heard things from, a friend, family member, or a healthcare professional, whether they've done research online, but the whole reason that we do an assessment is to understand you, and you're the expert in you bring all that information, but we know what our service offers, we know what we can support with, where our kind of remit is, and actually where our remit ends as well, because like you mentioned earlier, Jayne, we're here for kind of the mild to moderate end of the spectrum, so we have got areas that we're not here and trained to support with, but we can certainly help get you to the right place. But I think it's really important to be kind of open-minded to hearing what that individual's got to say to you at the end of your assessment, and whether that be considering a webinar, whether that be considering, have I got the time right now? Is this my priority, or is life just so busy that I'm not going to be able to commit to this potentially tricky process, you know. We'd always expect it to come out more positive at the end, but it can be a difficult journey, can't it? Kind of accessing these emotions and talking through whatever it is that's been difficult for us, and putting the time and effort in as well. It's, you know, like you say with CBT, can be very doing based, isn't it? It's a doing therapy.
It definitely is a doing therapy, and I would say alongside that, as well as being open to, you know, what's said at the end of the assessment, trying to be as open and honest in the assessment as well. You know, a lot of people coming in, it is really difficult to tell someone that you've just met, you know, exactly what's going on for you. But the more you can tell the person doing your assessment, you know, a clear picture of what's happening, what's led up to you coming for support, what your current symptoms are, the quicker we can get you to that right support and make the right treatment decision for you as well. So I know it is really difficult, you know, to have that first conversation, but you know, the staff are really, you know, supportive and well trained and want you to get the best out of the assessment.
It's really good. Yeah, I think that's really made me think, Sharon, about, because I suppose I didn't mention it earlier, but I was a therapist, you know, probably I've been out of practice about five years now, but I did a lot of these assessments, and what I can remember hearing is people being like, oh, I feel a bit weird about, I'm a bit strange, or can't believe I've just told you that. And never was I shocked. Like, never was that the first time that I'd heard whatever that was that individual was kind of worried or anxious or felt was odd about them. One thing that's really common across anxiety and depression kind of disorders is a lot of the physical symptoms can feel or embarrassing, or, you know, can feel strange, or like I'm being a weirdo, or I've got these thoughts in my head. But actually, what we hear them time and time again, don't we, in different ways. Everyone's an individual, but I think that's a really important thing to say, that we're not here to judge, and we're not going to think that, you know, this strange person, because the likelihood is we've heard it before to some extent, in a different form for different people. But yeah, don't worry or have that concern that you know, you're going to stick out in our head as somebody that's different.
And
Absolutely.
I know sometimes it might be helpful. I don't know, like if I go to an appointment, just to write some thoughts down before you go for your assessment, because it can be easy when you're in, you know, to forget things when you're in that initial assessment. You'll be asked lots of questions to make sure that, you know, we're going to give you the right support, and it can be easy to forget things. So if there is something you specifically want to make sure the person doing the assessment, you know, is aware of, it can sometimes be helpful to write that down and bring it with you to the session.
Definitely. And I love what you're both saying, because I think it's really helping to normalise some of how you're likely to feel, you know. But also, I think it's normalising that coming into anything like this, a service like ours, opening up about things, also, you know, apprehensions about what would therapy look like. It's completely normal to feel quite anxious about the process. So coming in and accessing therapy is anxious. And again, I think when we've talked about, you know, thinking is now the right time, or do I feel ready? You never are going to know that 100%, I suppose. But I think the things we've said, it's really important to consider. But also, don't let that bit of anxiety or that uncertainty about the process stop you reaching out to us, because that is completely normal and completely understandable. We do this day in, day out. You know, like Emma said, a lot of us we've done those assessments, so we're hearing these things every day. We're here to support you, so we know, you know, we have to take a step back sometimes and acknowledge how brave it is for people to come and access this support. So, you know, we want that to happen, but it's worth just acknowledging that it is normal if you are feeling quite anxious about it. Just don't let that put you off.
Yeah, really great point. And again, from my experience, a lot of people come the end of the assessment will be like, okay, that I'm really glad I've shared that, or that wasn't as bad as I thought, or you're actually just a human on the end of the phone. I think that, you know, understandably, therapists, our service, you know, people can put us on this, you know, not a pedestal, maybe that's the wrong word, but, you know, that can make the anxiety even worse. But we are just humans. We're having a conversation. As I say, you bring all that knowledge about yourself, and we're here to bring the knowledge about what might be helpful for those difficulties, and to try to help figure it out, so that we've got a bit of a plan come the end of that assessment. So it's a two-way conversation, and hopefully you'll feel really, really comfortable, and, you know, have a bit of a direction come the end of it, even if you feel super anxious going in.
And the people who do the assessments, they've got a wealth of knowledge as well, haven't they, about different resources and support around in local areas as well. So it might be that alongside getting support from our service, there might be some extra signposting depending on what a person comes to the appointment with. Or it might be that our service isn't the best service, but again, our assessors and our team have lots of different, resources and services that we could support people in accessing if that is the case.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And I guess that, yeah, we've talked about it a little bit, haven't it? But it does go back to that thing about, like, I'm not poorly enough to access the service, or there are others that need care more than me, or, I'm wasting your time. And I suppose everything we've said so far just says that we're here to support kind of anybody, aren't we, really, who needs this level of support or would like to explore that level of support.
Definitely, yeah. I think just if you're not sure, refer, and then we can help you to make that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just, if you really don't, look on the website, read, and do you feel like that? Does that kind of chime true with you? And if so, that's why we're here, and actually, if we can get you some support quickly, maybe we can kind of prevent things getting worse. And that sounds better to me than waiting until things are worse, than coming in maybe feeling like it's a bit more urgent. So yeah, okay. And I suppose the other question, I suppose, sometimes people kind of would ask or think about is, well, like, can I access the services? Like, what services are available to me? And I suppose there's quite a few different resources out there, particularly now, obviously, things are online. Is there anywhere in particular that either of you would recommend people kind of take a look?
I guess in terms of obviously our service and sort of, yeah, absolutely. So again, online on our website, there's just a wealth of information on there that talks you through or takes you through all the different interventions that we offer. In terms of the treatments, it tells you a little bit about those as well, which is really helpful. Like I say, it can help prepare you to kind of think, oh, okay, these might be those things. You might even read that information, and if you did refer yourself in or you were referred in, you may have an idea in your mind already what might be useful. There are some other bits of information on there in terms of other services that might be able to support you if you feel you need support a bit sooner or a bit more imminently than what we can offer as well. And it will tell you a bit about who we can support. Most talking therapy services are 18 and over. I think that's worth considering. I might be digressing a bit here, so I'll let you girls chip in a moment. But some are actually, depending on your area, 16 plus as well. So it's just worth kind of checking that out as well, depending on when we're saying it, we can sort of support people. It's just worth bearing that in mind, but also where that might differ.
Yeah, and I'm sure on our website as well, there will be details of support numbers should somebody's mental health deteriorate and they need sort of crisis support or need more urgent support. If somebody was looking on our website and felt that they were able to keep themselves safe, I would suggest reaching out to those services first for that quicker intervention. And also, if, for example, someone was on our waiting list and their presentation did change, or if somebody felt that they could stay on the waiting list and then things did seem to get worse, what I'd say is please go back and get checked up from your GP or reach out to those support services if needed, so that you can maintain your safety, really, because we want people to be safe while they're on our waiting list or while they're waiting to access support.
100%. And I guess, our website is a fantastic, well, in my opinion, a fantastic kind of place to start, isn't it? There's loads of resources, whether it's the information on there or the links that we're able to follow. And our services, we offer a variety of talking therapies in different areas across England. But I guess probably one of the biggest things actually is that we've not addressed so far somehow is that talking therapies are free. They are commissioned by the NHS, so probably should have headlined with that. So we're not going to ask you some money at the end of your session, or at any point during your care with us. And across England they're commissioned by the NHS. So there's different organisations that provide those services in certain areas. So if you're on our website and you can't find our area, maybe we'll put like a link to the NHS service finder somewhere, whether that's in the notes or I'm not quite sure how that works, maybe on screen, who knows. But yeah, that'll just allow you to type in your GP surgery, because that's how you know which service kind of covers your area. But as you say, Jane, depending on that, it might be that's an 18+ service, or might be a 16+ service. So yeah, worth checking out and having a little look. And I guess to access services, you do have to be registered with the GP, as well as is the I guess the line there. There's another thing that I just thought of as we were kind of chatting through, is like when people come to us and they have like a first session, and or they contact the service for the first time, sometimes what they expect from therapy, or what they expect me to deliver, is a little bit different, and some of that is maybe just an old school way of thinking about things, or that actually things have changed maybe quite a bit, particularly since the pandemic, sorry to mention, but is we offer lots of therapies remotely now, and that can really help access, can't it? Particularly if people have got other things in their lives, which we know people do. So I just wondered if either of you had any kind of notes around face-to-face versus remote therapies, pros, cons. Is there any difference?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good point, like you say, because it helps with that accessibility more than anything. Yeah, obviously provided therapy through sort of both those means, really. And some people, I guess what's interesting is some people may feel, you know, it's face to face, like you say, that's what I'd like that. And I think, you know, that is an option that we can provide. But I think remote, say if you're doing this over a video call, it's often, you can't, it's strange to say, but it doesn't overly feel too different. I think there's so many apprehensions about it, because it may not feel as personal, you know, but it works. It really works. It's an evidence base for this as well, otherwise we wouldn't deliver this, but it works. And it's that normally the first 1 or 2 appointments, you know, and sometimes people might say, well, actually, can we just have that first session over the telephone first? You know, and in most cases, yes, we could do that for that person. You know, but then go on to Teams, you know, and it depends on accessibility for people 100%. You know, we don't expect every single person will be able to use that, but generally you build that relationship really well together. You can see each other. It does feel very natural. Yeah, but we understand the apprehensions that can come up around that, definitely. I don't know if you want to add anything on, Sharon.
No, I think you've made some really good points there. Like I say, the evidence suggests that the outcomes are just the same, whether therapy is delivered, you know, face to face or online, and it can feel a little bit strange, but after a few sessions, things get easier once the tech's all figured out and you know your therapist. And we also offer computerized CBT programs as well. So that's another sort of more recent thing that we've added in. So if somebody, for example, can't come to regular sessions but want to access similar support, that can all be done via sort of computer-based methods as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it goes back to that, just keeping an open mind, isn't it, and having that discussion. And you mentioned, Jane, of course, if particularly, you know, if we have hearing difficulties or something like that, of course we can look at providing face-to-face therapy and as kind of close to location as what's realistic. With some limitations, we have to make sure the room's suitable and we've got a suitable venue, etc. But yeah, I think it's really good for people to know that remote therapy is just as good, and it can often be much more what's the right word?
Accessible.
Yeah.
Thinking about things like traveling time, you know, actually thinking about if you're going to attend a therapy appointment, having to take, you know, 20 minutes there and back to travel to have a face-to-face session versus, you know, nipping into a private space at home and having that appointment, then being able to get on with your day. For a lot of people, that's a real benefit of remote therapy.
It is, yeah, and I think they raise a really good point, say, going into that private space as well. And I think that's just one thing that is really important to consider if you kind of agree for that. And again, the person that assesses you, the therapist, they will talk to you about the importance of, you know, have you got that space where you are, you know, to be able to have that kind of uninterrupted time in that kind of private space so that you can engage, because it is still that protected time for you, and it's a really important part of that therapeutic process. So that's so important, like Sharon said, just to consider.
And I guess that I don't know whether it's a stigma anymore, but I've certainly heard it is just maybe to finish on, is that like when we think of therapy and what does therapy look like, it's not, we've touched on it a bit, but it's not you sat on a couch and your therapist fixing you, like that's not what we offer, is it? And that's maybe a really old school way of thinking about it, but equally maybe for people that haven't had it before, that might make them feel anxious, the thought that that's what it's going to look like, or you know, that it's that really maybe a didactic approach, you know, where the therapist is doing all the work. And one of you mentioned it earlier, that it's that really, you know, two-way process. So I suppose just to finish on, if what you're picturing when you're thinking about accessing therapy is lying on maybe a red chaise longue with a doctor and scribbling down lots of notes on a you know, really formal chair, it's not like that. Like we are, I don't want to say chilled, like I don't know what the right word is, but it hopefully, I don't know, how would you both describe it when you're meeting that client for the first time, whether that's teams or...
It's teamwork, isn't it? It's teamwork between the therapist and the person that's coming for therapy. You know, we work together. We've got skills in CBT or counselling for depression or whatever treatment that we're going to work on with the person, but they know them best. They know their lives. They know what's going on for them. So it's working together, and it's a shared process.
Definitely.
Wow. Any final comments, or does that feel like maybe we've stormed through a few myths, gone through a few misconceptions that maybe will help people maybe access the service or think about accessing the service, or talk to friends and family about, oh, actually that's, you know, that's not the case. Don't get bogged down with those type of things.
I just think we've I guess we've talked through a lot, haven't we? And hopefully it will really help demystify, or just help sort of, I guess, explain, you know, some of those areas that might be a concern, and break down some of those barriers in terms of reaching out. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if you're not sure, just give us a call or refer online, and we can support you in deciding if our service is the right one for you. And yeah, everyone is very friendly and approachable and wanting to support you.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much both for your time, and yeah, we can wrap up there. Thank you to anyone listening. I really hope you found that helpful, and we'll see you again soon for another episode.
Thank you for listening to It's All Mental, a podcast from Every Turn Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to follow, rate and share. See you next time.